This conference will now be recorded.
All right, then it's 4:01 and this is Thursday, November 4th. This is a special meeting of the Roswell Legal Committee. Could we have a roll call, please?
Counselor Stubbs,
Here.
Counselor Lopez, Counselor Perry,
Here.
and Counselor Foster.
Here.
Good, we do have a quorum, so thank you all. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda with moving number 6 up to in front of item 1, please?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda, moving item number 6 to
A.
A, yes.
0, 1A.
To zero.
Second.
All right, thank you. Basically, we're moving it up to the front of the agenda. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, we do have the minutes from our last week regular legal committee meeting of Thursday, October 28th. Are there any concerns, changes, questions, comments?
No corrections or concerns from me.
Nothing? Nothing? They'll stand approved as written then. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move to the EDC Service Agreement. This is a carryover from our regular meeting. There were some tweaking of a little bit of language that we wanted to do. Parker, Josh, are you all presenting this?
Sure, yes. And we did make those changes, which were discussed last time.
Okay,
I don't think it's a red line in here that was,
it's not. It's on page 31.
yeah,
There are no red lines.
I apologize for that.
Mr. Espiritu is here. You have seen this. Do you have any questions or concerns, or are you ready? You're okay?
Madam Chair, I'm fine with it. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you to you and the staff. I think here those minor changes.
Okay.
And I think we're in good shape from our perspective.
Great, appreciate that. Okay. Anything else from staff?
No, it worked.
I have a question. This is a 2-year agreement and it may be renewed for an additional 1 2-year period. And then under annual review, which is number 7 on page 33 of our packet, it talks about the parties can agree that they'll meet to review the most recent scope of work and consider such amendments to the scope of work and a finding level mutual agreed upon by the parties that is representative of the value of the service. So my question is, this doesn't sound like it ever comes back to council in 4 years, or the possibility of never coming back to council in 4 years. Is that correct?
As written, that is correct.
And is that okay with everyone? I just think it's something I wanted to ask. So it will be renewed and the scope of work will be decided upon without council concurrence if we keep this language, correct?
Could add a sentence that says any amendments to this agreement have to be ratified by the council.
That would be fine.
Is there any opposition to that? It just seems a little cleaner way to do it. So can I get an amendment to the agreement?
Where would you like that placed?
Probably there under annual review number 7, which is on page 33.
So my recommendation would be a C, any.
Oh, okay, we can do it with C.
How do you want that said, Parker? Any amendments, any?
Any amendments under this section shall be subject to approval by the city council.
Governing body.
Governing body.
Okay.
If I want city council, that's what it was.
And I won't be able to break the tie.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Okay, any discussion on the addition of something that says to the effect that
I've got it written.
okay, would you please read it then? Any amendments
The
under this?
amendment would be 7, annual review, paragraph C. Any amendments under this section shall be approved by the governing body.
Okay. Good. That's okay with you. And is there a second?
Well, first of all, there's more discussion, but yeah, there's a second for the
For
amendment.
the amendment?
Yes.
Okay. Now discussion on the amendment.
Well, not on the amendment.
Oh, the rest of the agreement. Okay. All right. Any further discussion or comments on the amendment? Hearing none, then all those in favor of including the amendment of 7C in the agreement with the Economic Development Corporation as stated, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. So now we have an amended agreement. Counselor Foster?
Okay, I need more clarification. The financial considerations, it says, the very first page, financial considerations,
Okay.
$100,000,
Yes.
doesn't say a term. And then it says this is a 2-year term, so is that 100,000 for 2 years, or is it 100,000 annually for 2 years?
It's in Exhibit C, which is on page 46. 100,000 is for the initial term.
It is 2 years.
Yes.
So is that the agreed upon? Is it agreed upon $50,000 a year?
If the intention is for it to be $100,000 per year, then we would have to change the document.
That's what I'm saying, though. Is that the understanding that it's 50,000 a year? Because, or is it 100,000 a year? What is the understanding?
Madam Chair, Counselor, our understanding with our discussions with the city manager is 100,000 per year.
So that's not what this is written. This is written as 50,000 a year.
For a period of 2 years. Good catch.
Yep, so
Right.
So, Madam Chair, with the change of that in Exhibit C, could it say the city has allocated 100,000 for the initial term of this agreement for services as outlined in Exhibit A, scope of work, and $100,000 for each individual, for each.
If you leave terms, then it's 2 years. The term of this agreement is 2 years.
For the initial
Year.
or just say the city has allocated 100,000 years annually. What did I say?
Years.
Oh, I am that type.
yeah, 100
City has allocated $100,000 annually
for the initial term.
for the initial term.
That would work.
So we're just adding annually after $100,000, correct?
Annually.
All right.
And
Okay, that's another amendment.
Do you want to make that?
Madam Chair, I make the amendment that on Exhibit C, paragraph 3, we change the city has allocated 100,000 annually for the initial term of this agreement.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion, questions or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor of the amendment to add the word annually after 100,000 in Exhibit C3, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We now have 2 amendments to our,
Well,
oh,
let's just make sure that now we haven't just discovered a third. Thank you, Councilor
25,000.
Foster. Now we have 24,000 in paragraph 4. That need to be random as well.
You know, I would think that that would go along, if we use up the first 25,000, then that would bring back to the city council the ability to, I mean, I don't know.
Was that intended for annually or is that intended for? I'm looking at
Yeah.
Mr. Espiritu, and he's saying his understanding was that was to be annually.
Madam Chair, Counselor, that's correct. And as a matter of fact, the current contracts and previous year contracts were written in that manner.
Okay.
So
So do we just add the word annually after $25,000?
25,000 for special projects annually.
May reimburse annually. Could put it there too.
Okay, yeah, that would be the better place.
Reimburse annually.
The city may agree to reimburse annually.
Okay, a motion, Mr. Foster? Is that it?
That would be it for, yeah, Madam Chair. Yeah,
Probably was his turn, but it's,
yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
he doesn't care.
We're not fighting over it. Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we amend paragraph 4 in Exhibit C. Read, the city may agree to reimburse annually RCC EDC as a sum not to exceed 25,000 for special projects.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to amend with one word in Exhibit C, compensation number 4, reimburse annually. Any further discussion or comments, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of the third amendment to this agreement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. We now have an amended agreement.
No, an amended amendment of the amended agreement. No, an amendment of the amendment of the amended agreement.
Amended. You're absolutely right. And then I really hate to complicate things. This is, I don't mean to do this, but on page 44 of the packet, Exhibit B matrix, number E3, in the second line, it says award at least 3 faced, and that should say facades. And that's just a typo. I don't think we need any. Any other comments then on the amended amendment?
The amended amendment. We've done it 3 times.
I know, but I'm just putting it all in one. I don't
No, aggravating.
say it amended amendment.
So now do we need a motion to approve?
Yes, to send to full council.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we send full council the business retention, expansion, and economic development agreement with the 3 amendments that were placed with our recommendation at the next full city council meeting.
Okay, good. We have a motion and a second to send the amended agreement. Amendment? The amended amendment.
Agreement.
Agreement. To full council with our recommendation to approve. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. This will be on the full council agenda for November 18th. Thank you all. Thank you. Good luck with your job fair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, now we're going to the resolution amending the ICIP plan. Councilor Perry, that comes from your committee.
Yes, ma'am. We have, due to the issue of, do you want it back up there at the beginning? I can get it. Oh, you want to go previous? Just go up here. And is it item, which one?
We're on item 1.
There you go. Is there something past this one we need to see?
Yes. Next slide.
No? So I guess there's not.
Oh, okay.
So we had the inability to get a quorum. We had
You're fine.
Counselor, yes, ma'am. And so because of the inability to have a quorum, there are things that are necessary to get to city council by our regular. And I feel like that it still needs to be vetted through committee process instead of just passing straight along to council. So that's why we brought it. And I'm thankful that you were kind enough to let us place these on the legal agenda. So Mr. Fuentes has this one.
Madam Chair and committee members, so the proposed resolution basically is adding 2 new projects to the previously adopted ICIP, the Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan. The first project is to add additional funds being requested to the all-inclusive park. The original appropriation we received last year was last legislative session was $1.4 million. We have already issued a purchase order for the A&E, architect engineering, for the design work, which leaves us a balance of 1.2. Now, the engineer's estimate for the entire project is about $2.2 million. That's the reason for requesting an additional $1 million for the all-inclusive park. The other project being requested to be added, and this is a new project, is the municipal golf course cart path rehabilitation in the amount of $500,000. And that's also based on an engineer's estimate of the linear feet of path at the golf course, which the engineer's estimate is it's 500,102. So the request will be an even $500,000. If approved by the committee and city council, staff will submit an amended request on both of these projects to the ICA database. Thank you. With that, I'll stand for any questions.
Appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, Councilor Perry.
Madam Chair, I was just going to say, all three of us, yourself and Councilor Foster and I, were all out at the groundbreaking for the all-inclusive park. And as we heard the assumption of what it was going to take to the figures to build this park, material has significantly gone up. So it's not a matter of just not planning well. It's a matter of where the economy is right now. It's just going to take more to put the exact same park in where it needs to be. That's not the kids' fault. It's not the family's fault. So it was requested to us by our legislator, Representative Nybert, to have this placed upon the ICIP. So just some added information.
Great, thank you. I think it's important to note that this goes on the list. It's not ranked. Neither of these are ranked because we've already done that, but it goes on the main list.
The all-inclusive park, that's correct. They've already been, we already have the ranked project, so this will be just.
Right, just on the list as additional projects. Okay, good, thank you. Anything, Councilor Foster? No, okay. Any further discussion or comments? Oh, we need a motion, yes.
I make a motion that we send to full council for this next meeting resolution. This resolution amending the 2023 through 2027 5-year infrastructure capital improvements plans to include the additions of the all-inclusive park and municipal golf course cart path rehabilitation.
Second.
Do you want to hear, do we want, this is a simple thing. Do we want to put this on the consent or just send it to? There's going to be plenty to deal with. Let's give it a try.
There's no financial.
Original was on.
That's true. Let's put it towards consent. If any council would like, it can be pulled. Okay.
Okay, a second? Second. Okay, good. So we have a motion to add both of these projects to the ICIP list for the 2023 to 2027 fiscal years. Projects. Are there any further comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Those will be on the consent agenda. Thank you. Councilor Perry, the next is a legal committee. That's the scope of work for RFP 22-008.
Yes, ma'am. This one would have been heard by the finance committee, but there again, because of quorum, this is where we are. There's the necessity of a request for a proposal for the services of utility statement processing and mail. And who's going to speak to us about this one?
Okay, good.
I'm Crystal Treadwell. Thank y'all for letting me present here since the finance committee wasn't able to get together. Madam Chair and committee members, I stand here before you requesting for your approval to take this scope of work to the city council on November 18, 2021. What it's for, it's to get RFPs, and you'll have to excuse my language, I've only been here 2 months, so.
Oh, you're doing
I
great.
don't know if I'm saying it right, but to get companies to bid for our billing, mailing, printing and mailing services.
Great.
The past couple of years, it has gone over the 59,999. So we, have to take it to the council.
Right.
So I'm just asking for your approval to bring that up to the council and hopefully get their approval.
Sure. Can I ask you, I don't know that I've seen it. I thought it's probably in here. Is this a annual contract? Is it a year? It's just for a year?
Yes, it will be just for a year.
Okay, and does it begin January 1st or?
I believe that it will technically begin now or whatever.
As soon as possible, okay.
And it'll run for the remaining of the fiscal year.
Oh, okay. So it's not,
And I believe the contract, it has the option to renew for the next 3 years.
okay. I didn't see that in here, but that's good to know. Okay.
It's on page 14.
14, contract terms. I have it underlined. But then I probably didn't enter it. Yes.
So this is actually just a request for proposal. So
Yes.
Right, the RFP has not been written.
It hasn't been written,
This is
so
the
it has,
scope.
yeah, this is just the scope.
Yes, let's say 3 years. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so we have the timeline and the draft language and what we're requesting in the scope of work. And it'll be for a 3-year period of time. No, it'll be annual with 3 1-year renewals. Okay. Any questions, comments, further concerns?
I make a motion that we just send to full council to consider, to approve with our recommendation to approve the scope of work for RFP 22-08 and which is for the services of utility statement processing and mailing.
Okay, thank you. Second?
Second, do we want this on regular or consent? I mean, it's a scope of work.
It's a scope of work, so I'm okay with consent for scope
That's
of
fine.
work. Yes,
That's
thank you.
Okay. So motion and a second to approve this request or to recommend approval for the request for proposal scope of work on the consent agenda at the November council meeting. Any further questions or comments?
I'll just say whoever's built this is on page 15 has not got 7 children.
I'm sure that's right.
$21.28. Wow.
I don't know anyone that has that kind of bill.
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. And no further comments? All those in favor of referring the scope of work to full council to approve on the consent agenda signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, thank you. We have one more item that's actually from Finance Committee as well. This is the disposal of certain surplus personal property resolution. Councilor Perry.
Thank you, Councilor Stubbs. Mr. Glenn's here to speak on this one. This is our normal disposal of certain surplus personal property. We all wish that we were able just to allow this to be done within management, but statute says we're going to take care of this every time, so.
It's the attorneys.
But you know what? The list is getting smaller.
It is getting smaller.
You go over and look at the Lincoln Yard, it's getting pretty empty over there too.
That's good to know.
This does have a couple of unusual things on it. That first one on the list is the 2017 Ford Explorer. That is going to be, we're actually keeping that. We're going to have you declare it as scrap and then we're going to part it out.
Oh,
It was damaged, so we're just going to use it for parts.
Say that one more time.
The Ford Explorer.
Okay,
We're going
thank
to
you.
use for parts.
All right.
The Boeing aircraft
yeah.
is an unusual one. That's It's an old training one that's out at the airport. It's in the way of the new hangar that's being built. That and the fuel tanks, they're actually going to be scrapped out, and it'll be a zero. It won't cost us to have the stuff hauled out. The guy that's gonna haul it is
Right there.
doing it for scrap. So
Right?
that'll be a zero sum there. And then we've got 2 buses. And a couple of chairs and a desk. And
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, Counselor Foster.
Well, my question is on the snow blade that's out at the air center.
yes,
Is it not usable on any trucks, the city trucks, or?
it would take a lot, because we thought about that. When I worked up in West Yellowstone, we would take old blades like that and mount them, put them so you could mount them on the front end loaders. That one, it's rusted out enough, and to put the mounting on it would just be more than it's worth.
Okay, well, 'cause
We looked into it.
I just remember after the Goliath blizzard that hit us, that the mayor got accused of selling all our snow blades, so.
We actually have another plan kind of in motion, so.
Okay.
They went and bought 6 snow shovels at Ace Hardware.
Well, there's 10 counselors, and get 11. About 11, one for everybody.
We are,
And the mayor himself, huh?
but we are looking into some of the new equipment that we purchased that has the opportunity to change the implement on the front. And it's just for that, because then we can get some surplus plows out of the state that have that already on there, and all you have to do is hook onto it.
Yeah.
Take off.
Good.
Yep.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
That West Yellowstone, it worked really good. If you do it, put it on the loaders, it works really nice, because then you're up and you can see things.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I
Yes.
make a motion that we send to full council on the consent agenda.
Yes.
Our recommendation to approve the resolution authorizing the disposal of the certain surplus personal items which are outlined as Exhibit A on page 19
And B.
and B.
Second.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you notice he's out of step with Bruce Stubbs?
Why is that?
I actually have pants.
Oh, he does have on. Well, you've always got on pants, but they're usually short pants.
Well, Bruce Stubbs wearing his shorts.
All right.
Okay, we have,
Plain socks.
we have a motion to send our resolution on certain surplus items to full council on consent agenda with a recommendation to approve. Any further discussion or comments? And all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It carries on consent agenda. And Counselor Foster from General Services had a couple items. So Counselor Foster, do you want to introduce the approval to purchase a new Toro Groundsmaster?
All right, Ms. Hicks, are you handling that one too? Okay. All right, Ms. Hicks, you're on.
Okay, so the Parks Department, good afternoon, Madam Chair and councilors. The Parks Department has reorganized and they now have 4 grounds crews taking care of the city. One crew is specifically just for the Main Street corridor that has the museum and transit and all of that. And so one of the things that they needed to do was make sure they had enough mowers to handle that. They have 3 mowers, but they need to add that 4th mower so that they have the ability to take excellent care of our grounds. Not everybody will be mowing at the exact same time, so you might think, well, maybe we don't really need 4, but sometimes a mower might be down for a service or something like that. So they requested to have 4. The mower will be purchased from Simpson Morton. We have a copy of the estimate. It's a CES Cooperative Purchasing Agreement, number 2020-01 C101. That expires in August of 2023. The amount is $119,034.85. And this has not been a part of the budget previously, so it would also require.
Okay, so if approved here, it would then go to finance for a budget amendment.
If you approve it, then it'll just be on the annual, the monthly budget amendment.
Oh,
That's correct.
it'll go on that amendment.
If the
Yeah,
council does approve it, then we will at some point take the budget amendment to.
great. Okay, thank you. Thank you. All right, any questions or comments?
Does this,
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, do we pay sales tax on this?
Does it have that?
No, it says zero. I was just
Yeah,
confirming.
no, we don't pay sales tax on items.
Okay, all right.
Physical property.
All right.
Okay. Can we get a motion, please?
Madam Chair, I'd make a motion to send to full council for the regular agenda with motion to approve the purchase of a new Toro Groundsmaster 5900 for the Parks Department at a budget cost of $119,034.85.
A second?
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on recommending to full council the purchase of a new Toro Groundsmaster 5900. Any discussion? Any comments or questions? Hearing none, then all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, our next item number 5 also comes from General Services. So Counselor Foster.
We have Ms. Hicks here for some buses.
So in August of 2020, you approved us to apply for 5 new buses. The state said, nope, you're not getting 5, you're getting 2. And so we have been able to talk them into 2 more. So I now need approval for the 4 because we have the actual quote here and it's attached for your review. What's happening is when we only get 2 buses a year, we're falling further and further behind. So the number of miles that they recommend for our bus class is like 185,000. We have over 300,000 on a number of our buses. So our buses are aging more rapidly and we need, because of the number of miles, that we need to replace them. Also, we have wrecked 2 buses. We wrecked number 948 in 2019 and that bus was not replaced. And this year we had an accident on bus 945 and that one has not been replaced either. So we need to replace those 2 buses. We are going to use the Cannabis State Price Agreement. It expires in January of 2022 and purchased from Creative Bus Sales. The total for the purchase is $469,056. The state will pay $375,244.80, and the city will be responsible for $93,811.20. The budget amendment is required because we had already budgeted.
Okay, great.
And I stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you.
Where's the manufacturer at?
Manufacturer? I don't know, Creative is here, but I don't know where the buses are coming from.
That's all right.
It's on a Ford chassis, so wherever they make the Ford buses.
China.
I don't think it's that far away.
We won't get it for another 2 years.
Like the parts from the car. Okay, any questions, comments? Got a motion?
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to send to full council with recommendation to approve the purchase of 4 new buses for Roswell Transit at a total cost of $469,056, but a city cost of only $93,811.20.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to purchase the buses. Any further discussion or comments? Hearing none, then all those in favor of sending that to council with a recommendation to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. So that'll be on the November 18th council agenda. Okay, we have taken care of item number 6. So we're moving to the Clean Air Act amendments, which is on page 51. This was postponed from the regular legal committee agenda for some changes. I'm a little confused. Parker, can you explain to me what we've got in our packet? This is not what we saw last week. This has some additional changes. I'm sorry.
Yes, these were the changes, and I did send out a red line to you all individually
Right.
that showed what the
That's
changes
different
were.
from this, I think. Is it or not?
No,
Maybe that isn't.
no, and you'll see Kevin can tell you more about what the specific changes were, but basically we took a look at, because we had discussed that the definitions, some of the definitions were not necessary, those were struck. And then there was also some discussion that on page 56, you'll see subsection A. Our discussion was how does cannabis relate to that? And so subsections 2 and 3 were added that say whatever you're doing with, getting a permit to have a smoking event also, if it involves cannabis, would also be subject to that. And those were the main changes that were made from the last meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this have no red line in it?
I know. I apologize for that. But
That's all right.
we did
So
send
you
out.
did send it out.
I did. Yeah, we did mail that out to you all.
Okay, so this actually is again all new, pretty much to the act. There've been a lot of changes in it. And Kevin, you want to go ahead and present?
Okay. Does everybody have a copy of the red line that was sent out that says version 2.2?
I did not bring it with me.
I did.
Oh, why did I not?
Do you have it on your phone?
What you have in front of you now, though, is I believe, it's a black line version, okay, with all the redactions and other things having been made. So after last week's meeting, we went back and Parker and I together, we went through, and as he stated, beginning with section 1442, we began removing those items we felt were redundant. There's now a reference to directly to anything having to do with cannabis. Please refer to the Cannabis Act, which was something that we had discussed so that we wouldn't have duplication of effort. So what that resulted in is removing all definitions related to cannabis. Advertisement was another one that came out of there. Cannabis consumption area, cannabis consumption facility, cannabis retailer, all of those came out. But we reduced about a page and a half of text just by making those amendments pursuant to last month's meeting. Beyond that, we removed also homegrown and marijuana so that that would be, again, going back and referring to the Marijuana Act. There was some clarification made to the definition of public area versus public place so that we are certain how those two terms are being applied. Okay. Previously, there was qualified patient and reciprocal participant. Again, references to the Cannabis Act. Those have been removed as well. Okay. With respect to the prohibition of smoking area, again, I think there was a couple of minor changes that were made in that grammatical that was identified at the last meeting. But then we did add the additional section because there was concerns about essentially this being putting people on notice that in addition to getting a permit for an on-site smoking facility, that there were additional requirements within the cannabis ordinance for certain permits and things. So section 1443A2 was added to this, and A3, making sure that people know that for on-site cannabis consumption, there is additional permits required. And if you have any temporary or special events where there would be on-site consumption, there would also be additional permits required. So tying back to the cannabis ordinance.
I'm sorry. You said section 1442. You meant 43, I'm sure. Because that's where it at.
I'm sorry, you're correct. Yes, I think 1440.
I wanted to make sure I was looking at the right.
1443. Beyond that, the rest of it was just minor grammatical and formatting changes, I believe, for the balance of it. with the exception of getting all the way down to section 1446.
Oh, yeah.
Violations and penalties. Parker advised me that the fine for $1,000 exceeded what we were allowed to do. So that was removed in favor of just a fine of $500 for each additional violation after the first violation within the same calendar year. And then the last item is me being optimistic that things will move through and that appropriately and it will go into effect on or about December 16th of this year. But those are the majority changes.
Thank you very much. Okay, comments, questions? Councilman, yes.
Since we're on the section, and forgive me, I was in the meeting, so that would have been the best time to bring this up. But now I just see it and I just wonder, with the violations and penalties, a person who smokes in an area where smoking is prohibited, the provision of this act shall be guilty of a petty misdemeanor punishable by a fine not to exceed 150. That is, and then it goes on to B, to fine not exceeding $250 for the first violation. Just wonder, do we leave those as there, or do we just leave them all as $500 and let the judge determine, because he can always make them less? That's just a personal question. Not pushing an amendment, just asking.
Again, the difference was for an individual and then management of the facility. Okay, so it's again, a person of the individual who happens to be at a facility, that's the $150 fine. We figure there should be, I do believe that you and I discussed it, heavier penalties for management and or operators that violate the ordinance.
And also, these are caps, but they're not mandatory. You know, if the judge can say, well, I actually want to give you a fine of $50 or defer it altogether, right? What this does is say that the judge could not fine more than $150 if you were smoking in a place where you shouldn't be smoking.
I just wanted to make sure we're giving the judge as much to possibly work with. But as Councilor Stubbs pointed out, what the state has mandated as well is what we have to consider. So that's just more of a question than it was to push for amending. So,
but currently we have a person who smokes in an area where smoking is prohibited by the provisions of this act shall be guilty of a petty misdemeanor punishable by not to exceed $50.
This is increasing. Currently, it's $50. This would increase the mandatory or the cap to $150 is what it would do.
Yeah, so that is a change to what we've had from 50 to 150. And then a change to the 500 as well and currently the smoking act says 50, 100 for the second violation and 200 for each additional. So this increases quite a bit.
okay. Thank you.
From the current.
I need clarification.
Sure.
On page 56, paragraph under B, paragraph 4. B, the vehicle used for business purposes privately owned by the business owner.
I'm sorry, which line are you on?
42.
2? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, smoking is permitted if the business owner, or if the driver is the owner of the vehicle.
No, that's not what it says.
All right, read it to me.
It says smoking is permitted if the vehicle is owned by the business, privately owned by the business owner. So an employee could be smoking. I mean, it's kind of convoluted, I think. And that's why
Does it have to be the business owner, or is it just privately owned by the driver? Which are we intending here?
That was the intent, was that if someone uses their private vehicle for business purposes and it's only that individual.
Right, and so, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be the business owner. It could be an employee if they're using their private vehicle in the course and scope of so you could just change from business owner to driver.
Right, well, but if the business owner allows his employees to smoke in his fleet, I mean, why are we restricting that? Because this would seem to restrict that.
It would,
And that's not up to us to restrict what the business owner, if he says they can, they should be able to. So. I'm getting to the other point is, at what point we keep creating some of these ordinances and we have no means of policing them? I mean,
I don't see that in our current. That's new as well.
yeah, it's totally redlined. It's totally added on.
That's,
That portion of it is added on. Currently, in the current ordinance, it reads smoking is permitted in a closed office or room within a place of employment or in a vehicle used in employment, provided that. And we added that the vehicle used for business purposes is privately owned by the business owner. We've added that as a little additional clarification.
Which to me actually doesn't clarify it. It makes it more
makes it
convoluted.
difficult to, yeah.
Because if the business owner has a fleet and he allows his employees to smoke, then it's, what is it for us to say that? But, and then the other is, yeah, if you're an employee and you drive your personal vehicle, you should be able to smoke in it too. But it's not owned by the business owner, it's owned by the employee. So it's,
Well,
Yeah.
that's what you're saying. What if it's pizza delivery, you own the vehicle, but the employer says no smoking
right.
while he has.
And they can do that, but it's not up to us to say, tell them not to do it.
That they can't do.
I mean,
I agree.
but I know a business right now that has a fleet of trucks and he allows his employees to smoke in their trucks.
So how is that fixable?
I say I think just thinking up out loud right here, the way to remedy that would be strike line B in its entirety and then add to what is currently line C. The smokers are the only persons present in the room, comma, office, comma, or vehicle. They cannot have passengers. It's intended to be an individual by themselves.
He already says the smoke is filtered, otherwise dissipates before other persons enter the room, office, or vehicle. It's already there.
Right, so I think Kevin's point, if you just strike B, then you're there, right?
And then
You don't really have to change anything because it's
we're there.
the only person present in the room, office, or vehicle.
It's already in C.
Right, and then the smoke dissipates before anybody else enters the room, office, or vehicle. So we've taken care of the issue that nobody's going to be forced to be exposed to it if they don't want to.
Right.
So just strike B and you've got it.
Okay.
Strike B and then re-letter.
Yeah, and re-letter.
Yeah, and then I'll have to read them.
Striking B.
That's easy enough.
That's, okay.
For,
Striking B.
yes. Small letter B.
Right.
Small letter B.
Then the lettering will go through E instead of F.
Right. All right. Anything else? You know, the more I think about this and the more I keep looking at it, the more I keep going back to what keeps ringing in my head. And that is originally when we wrote this, we wrote something that was drafted to be as close to the state statute as we could. And there seems to, at the time and continually, to be good reason to do that. And I'm still just so concerned about deviating with all this additional language that if we aren't setting ourselves up for trouble. And I still have never seen what I asked for, and that was a rewrite of this with only the changes that we talked about at the Cannabis Steering Committee, which was adding cannabis and vaping. Have we deviated? I mean, we've deviated so far from that I'm having trouble justifying all of this. Does that make any sense?
There was a draft and it's still floating around that did just change those things.
And what was wrong with that? I don't remember that it ever came to committee.
It has not come to committee.
It did not correlate well with our cannabis ordinance.
Why not?
Cannabis ordinance takes the state's legislation and combines it with time, place, and manner regulations. You cannot, our version of the Clean Air Act, while it relies upon some of the verbiage in the state code, does not go far enough to correlate well with our version of the cannabis ordinance. So we have to make sure that those things blend well. And if they don't blend well, then we end up with a disconnect between our smoking ordinance and our cannabis ordinance. So without all these additional rewrites that are proposed here and without moving it from the nuisance ordinance, which is quite honestly, I went back and I looked at the original. This is not a nuisance ordinance anymore. We are not declaring smoking a nuisance. This has to do with clean air being available for everyone and people not having to do it. So it needs to be moved again from the nuisance ordinance to public health, or this is the human rights section as well, which is what was the original intent of the D. Johnson Clean Indoor Air Act. It's not the D. Johnson Smoking is a Nuisance Act. It's the D. Johnson Clean Air Act. So we're following state laws as well by also moving it, and then we're enhancing it, which is fully within our rights to do.
Oh, I didn't question whether it's within our rights whatsoever. I'm just questioning the necessity of all of this. See, I understand what you're saying about moving it, but I don't see the real need to do that either. It still is a nuisance. I understand. I don't know. I just think too of all the trouble that public safety and this whole council went through for several months, going through the entire nuisance part of city code. And it's still there. It's still in nuisance. So
I'm sure there was a tremendous amount of debate, but that was also in an era well before issues of social justice, environmental justice, and all the other things.
A few months ago.
That you did the Clean Air Act?
Oh, the
original Clean Air.
Revisited it.
Well, revisited the nuisance.
Nuisance, yeah. Well, we revisited all of it, everything that's in the nuisance section, including the Clean Air. Well, we obviously still have some changes to make to this. I would like to see, and forgive me, but I'd like to see a Clean Air Act. We still have to call it the D. Johnson. I mean, we have to do that. And I would just like to see the addition of cannabis and vaping. And I can't remember, Kevin, seems to me there was one other thing that we talked about adding. And I don't know, maybe there wasn't, but because I can't think of it. Vaping.
Well, vaping included, there's cannabis in vaping.
Right.
Now, so that may be what you're thinking of.
But there is vaping that's not.
Sure.
So our ordinance, as it stands, several years ago, this legislature adopted changes to the D. Johnson,
Yes.
which included e-cigarettes and vaping, basically just creating.
E-cigarettes, that's what I was trying to think
And
of.
so then, and it was they added a definition, and then, smoking includes e-cigarettes and vaping. And then we did not change ours at the time. In fact, that's how.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
We had a discussion. I'm not sure if
Well, yeah, we really hit that discussion pretty hard before I resigned from the council back in, what was that, 18?
Well, the ordinance as it stands today does not address it.
I'm surprised because I know that was some pretty
I don't.
pretty in-depth.
And e-cigarettes was one of the other.
And then after that, so our ordinance did not change, although the state law did, to include vaping. And then when the Cannabis Regulation Act was enacted, among the change, so it enacted the Cannabis Regulation Act, and then it had several subsequent sections which modified different state laws to be, in relation to the Cannabis Regulation Act. And one of them was to change the D. Johnson Clean Indoor Air Act to address cannabis. And it had a modified definition of smoke, which included cannabis, and then said something to the effect of smoke, one of the exceptions to the anti-smoking was a cannabis consumption area. And those were basically the changes that were made in the Cannabis Regulation Act.
So if we were to look at those implementing, which we obviously should anyway, I would assume, and I don't think that's all included in any of this, but we should be looking at those additions to begin with. I'm seeing not necessarily consensus here, but look at those first, and then, like I say, I would just like to see what it looks like with just those types of additions, including the cannabis that is specific to the clean air, which is what this is. Is that asking too much?
I can definitely pull out the original draft that we had done, which did basically what you're saying, just modified just those two issues and did not touch the rest of it. And we can bring that forward for consideration as well.
Build on to that with the addition of the cannabis, because that wasn't included in just that inclusion, I guess.
Yeah, we can, I've still got it. So are you asking that it be brought back next time with a new version, or what would you like to do?
Well, we've talked about some changes to this. And so with all due respect, I'd say this and this.
I'd like to see two proposed ordinances. Okay.
Well,
And
I would like
I'm
to
talking
just the
about
state ordinance, the new state ordinance, and then that way we can compare to see where this is different from it.
I don't mind doing that, but there's not going to be one place that shows these changes, because there was one set of changes that added vaping a couple years ago, and then there's another set of changes that address cannabis. So there's not one place where you can see easily what the additions are compared to ours. Yeah. Except that the red lines or the changes that were in the draft as originally made were basically that. They just said vaping, and the language was borrowed directly from the D. Johnson Clean Indoor Air.
Well, then I'd like to see that compared to this, just to see how far we deviate from it. I don't mind deviating. I just like to see if we're going in directions, just like the B.
But I can do.
Didn't need it.
At the next legal committee, we can have both proposed ordinances, and I can include in the packet a copy of the D. Johnson Clean Indoor Air Act just for your reference.
That sounds good.
You can do that.
Okay, good. All right. Is there any other comment on what we have before us? Any questions?
Just for clarification.
Sure.
What we're bringing back, okay, if you want something that's just going to modify our existing act, our existing Clean Air Act, to bring it up into compliance with what you feel is the state has right now, then you also do not want that moved. You want this to be an amendment to our existing nuisance ordinance. You do not want it moved to, is that part of this, or do you want it?
I don't know. I mean, I'm not as adamant about that.
I don't disagree with it being moved out of the nuisance. But there again, where does it truly belong? Does it belong in our Cannabis Act? I don't think so.
It doesn't sound like it. You're talking about Article 14, is that?
You're trying to put it.
Yeah. Is that where you're looking?
Article 14 is the Human Rights and Human Resources section. Article 16, I believe, is nuisance.
Yes.
In the human rights right now, it's human rights and human resources.
Right.
The Commission on Aging is in here. And there's a commission on the ADA and accessibility. So there's a couple of commissions in here.
Behavioral health, I bet's in there too.
Not anymore. That was,
That one
that was, and then there's something, we've got something in here about affordable housing. So that's what's currently in there. There's an article that says in general, which is nothing in it. So there's really 3 articles. There's Commission on Aging, Commission on ADA, and then an affordable housing one.
That can help. And I do think behavioral.
Yeah, it
We
is.
need to get behavioral back in. And it's not a bad place for it.
Okay. I think where it's actually located is sort of minor. I think we need to figure out what we want to say in it and what we expect it to do, and then figure out. Okay, we all, okay? Any further discussion or comments?
We've come a long way.
To get nowhere.
Well, I'm just thinking when I was a kid, I can remember being in the doctor's office and having the chairs with the ashtrays attached to
Yes.
the chairs. The hallways next to the elevators had a little cigarette.
Yeah.
Cars
Remember?
had cigarette lighters.
Yes. There was the smoking and non-smoking. Even the back seat of cars had ashtrays.
That's
You remember? I mean, we have just come so
Plane.
far from where we were.
Yeah, smoking on
I
the plane.
smoked on the plane all the time. Yeah, so we have. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Okay. We're okay, Parker?
Yeah,
Thank you.
we can do this.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now, we have one additional item that is on the back of the agenda, but it's not on the front of the agenda. So, Open Meetings Act does not allow us to discuss, well, we could discuss it, but we can't
Discuss it, but you cannot take action.
take any action on it. So, Parker, you think we should discuss it, or?
I'm okay if you want to talk about it. I don't,
It's a simple.
that's not a,
But, and I think that the city manager is going to put it on the council agenda, so,
Madam Chair,
yes.
we could, let's just
Sure.
mention it only because I do think that I always like things going through committee versus just going on council. This just happened. We're all human and mistakes
Sure.
get made and we don't get things all where it's supposed to be. But just quite candidly, the convention center had a checkbook at one time when we closed everything up with Spectra. It was terminated. Now that we're starting to get ourselves opened back up, there's the necessity of that accounting to be done through that checking account. So it's just a request of the city council to open up another checking account with the signers to be Janie Davies, the finance director, Joe Nebb, city manager, Mike Matthews, deputy city manager, mayor, Dennis Kentai, David Reed, facility operations manager, and Chad Hayes as chef. But it still has the same accountabilities as any other of our funding, and it's not reinventing the wheel, it's just getting back to business.
Right, back to business is a good way to put it.
I think at least bringing it up in committee
Yes,
is still a good thing. So
Yes.
when we go to council, we're aware of what
we know what it is, so appreciate that. Yeah, so maybe that's a sign of getting back to normal, whatever that is.
Hold your breath.
All right. Thank you all very much. That's the last item we have. Any further comments or questions or concerns or sessions?
It's on here.
It's recorded.
I just wondered if.
Is Rita? Isn't that Rita? Do we have anyone on GoToMeeting that wishes to speak?
I think that one is us.
I guess it is. She's gone. All right, appreciate everybody. This meeting is adjourned at 5:05.
Well, my question is, right here,
Talking about long way.
they smoking shell also. I'll be excused.